welcome back. I'm really glad you're here tonight. Take a moment if you can to settle in a little, adjust your pillow, let your shoulders soften, maybe pull a blanket just a bit closer. There's nothing you need to do right now, nowhere you need to go, nothing waiting for your attention except this quiet moment. Tonight, we're going somewhere very different. Not to a palace, not to a battlefield, not to the towering monuments that usually define how we imagine ancient Egypt, but somewhere much quieter than that, somewhere most history quietly forgets. We're going to a small village along the Nile, a place where life wasn't shaped by kings or pyramids, but by something much older, much steadier, the river itself. And as the day begins to come to an end, as the sun slowly lowers toward the horizon, everything here starts to change, because along the Nile, evening was not just the end of the day, it was the moment when the river became everything. The air begins to shift first, almost too gently to notice at the beginning. The long heat of the day, still resting on the ground, still held within the walls of the village, but slowly, quietly, beginning to release. The warmth does not disappear all at once. It softens, spreading out into the open air, mixing with a faint breeze that moves across the surface of the river and carries something cooler with it. You can feel it lightly against your skin, not strong enough to interrupt the heat completely, but enough to signal that something is changing, something steady and familiar, something that happens every evening without needing to be announced. You find yourself standing near the edge of the Nile, the ground beneath your feet dry and firm, packed earth shaped by countless footsteps, warmed by hours of sunlight, and now slowly giving that warmth back to the air. In front of you the river stretches wide and calm, moving with a steady, unhurried flow that feels almost constant, almost timeless. It does not rush, it does not resist, it simply continues, carrying water forward in a quiet rhythm that has not changed for generations. The surface reflects the sky above, but never perfectly, always shifting slightly, small ripples catching the light and breaking it into soft, moving patterns that drift and reform again and again. If you listen closely, you can hear it, not loudly, not sharply, just a quiet continue. Ooze sound, water moving against itself, against the riverbank, brushing lightly against the edges of wooden boats resting nearby. It's the kind of sound that doesn't demand your attention, but once you notice it, it stays with you, steady, calming, almost reassuring in its consistency. Behind you, the village rests quietly, a small cluster of mud brick homes built by hand. Shaped from the same earth you stand on, dried under the sun, and formed into walls that are thick and practical, made to hold the day's heat and release it slowly as the evening begins. The surfaces are uneven, textured, marked by use rather than decoration, each home slightly different but all sharing the same purpose, the same quiet presence. The roofs are flat, simple, often used as much as the space below, holding bundles of reeds, woven materials, tools, and objects that have been left out to dry in the sun. Nothing here feels unnecessary, nothing exists just to be seen. Everything has a use, everything belongs exactly where it is. The light begins to change now, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. The sun hangs lower in the sky, larger than it seemed before, its brightness softened, its colour deepening into something warmer, something richer. The endless blue above begins to shift, not all at once, but in layers, gold spreading gently outward, amber tones forming along the horizon, the first hint of evening taking shape without ever fully announcing itself. The reflection of that light stretches across the Nile, long and broken slightly by the movement of the water, but still strong enough to draw your eyes, again and again. Around you the village begins to respond to this change, not with sudden movement, not with any clear signal, but with a gradual slowing that feels natural, expected. People are still moving, still finishing the last parts of their day, but their pace has shifted, no longer driven by the height of the sun or the demands of the afternoon. What remains is quieter, more measured, shaped by the understanding that the day is ending, and that what is left must be done before the light fades completely. In the distance, a small boat moves across the surface of the river, its shape narrow and simple, guided by long wooden oars that dip into the water and rise again in a slow, steady rhythm. Each movement creates a ripple that spreads outward, soft and temporary, disappearing, earring almost as soon as it forms. There is no urgency in it, no wasted effort, only repetition. Only the quiet continuation of something that has been done the same way for as long as anyone can remember. And as you stand there, watching the water, feeling the subtle cooling of the air, noticing the way the light continues to soften, you begin to understand something about this place. Life here does not move in sharp transitions. It does not shift suddenly from one moment to the next. It flows, just like the river beside you. The day becomes evening not in a single instant, but in a long, gradual change that touches everything: the light, the air, the movement of people, the quiet presence of the land itself. If you take a slow breath, you can feel it more clearly now. The warmth still present but fading, the breeze slightly cooler, the sound softer, the light lower, everything moving gently in the same direction, everything slowing without resistance. And there is nothing you need to do here, nothing you need to follow, no moment you need to hold on to. You are simply here, standing at the edge of the Nile, the river moving steadily beside you, the village resting quietly behind, to never. You, the sun lowering slowly in front of you, and time itself moving gently, without pressure, without urgency, carrying everything forward into the night. As you remain there by the river, letting your eyes follow the slow movement of the water, your attention begins to shift gently back toward the village behind you. It doesn't pull you suddenly, there is no clear reason to turn, just a quiet awareness of the space that exists beyond the riverbank, the place where people live, where the rhythm of the day is still continuing in softer, quieter ways. If you take a few slow steps away from the edge of the Nile, the ground beneath your feet changes slightly, still firm, still dry, but marked more clearly by use, by the steady passage of people moving between the river and their homes, carrying water, tools, baskets, the small necessities that shape daily life here. The path is not defined by design. There are no laid stones or constructed edges, just a natural trail pressed into the earth over time, formed by repetition rather than intention. It curves gently as it leads you inward, not in a straight line, but in a way that feels organic, shaped by the placement of homes, by the space. Everyone has left between them, by the simple logic of moving from one place to another without needing to force a rigid structure onto the land. As you walk further into the village, the presence of the river remains with you, not in sight as much as before, but still in sound, still in feeling. The quiet movement of water carries through the air, softer now, blending with other small sounds that begin to emerge as you draw closer to where people are gathered. A faint murmur of voices, low and unhurried, the sound of something being set down, the gentle movement of feet on packed earth, all of it forming a kind of background rhythm that feels calm, contained. The homes around you come into clearer view now, their walls rising from the ground in simple, solid forms. Each one is slightly different, shaped by the hands that built it, by the needs of the people who live inside, but all share the same materials, the same muted tones of earth and clay. The surfaces are textured, uneven in small ways, catching the last of the sunlight along their edges, creating soft shadows that deepen as the light continues to lower. Doorways stand open in many of the homes, not as an invitation, but as a natural part of the structure, allowing air to move through, allowing the heat of the day to slowly escape. From within, you might catch brief glimpses of interior spaces, dim compared to the outside, but still holding the final movements of the evening. A figure passing through, the outline of a simple object, the suggestion of activity rather than a clear view of it. Between the homes, narrow spaces form small passages, not planned, not symmetrical, but functional, connecting one area to another. Some are wide enough for two people to pass comfortably, others tighter, requiring a slight turn of the body as you move through. The ground here is cooler than it was near the river, shaded for much of the day by the walls, holding less of the sun's heat, offering a subtle relief that becomes more noticeable as you walk. You begin to notice how close everything is, not crowded, but near, each home within a short distance of the next, forming a small, connected community where movement from one place to another is easy, natural. There are no large separations, no wide empty spaces dividing one family from another. Life here is shared, not in an obvious way, but in the simple fact that everyone exists within the same small area, within the same rhythm. A few people are still outside, finishing the last parts of their day. One person carries a bundle of something gathered earlier, moving at a steady pace toward a doorway, while another stands near the edge of a home, pausing for a moment, perhaps speaking quietly to someone just inside. Their voices are low, not meant to carry far, blending into the general softness of the evening rather than rising above it. There is no sense of urgency now, no rapid movement, no loud direction being given. The work that needed to be done in full daylight has already passed. What remains are the final, smaller tasks, the kind that can be completed without haste, without strain, carried out with the same steady familiarity that shapes everything else here. If you continue walking, the village begins to reveal more of itself, not all at once, but in pieces, each step offering a slightly different view, a slightly different angle. A small open space appears between a few homes, not large, but enough to allow light to gather for a moment before it fades further. In this space, you might see simple objects left out from the day's work, tools, woven baskets, items shaped by use rather than decoration. The air here carries a mixture of subtle scents, dry earth, faint traces of water from the river, perhaps something cooking somewhere nearby, though not strongly enough to stand out. Nothing overwhelms the senses, everything remains balanced, quiet, part of the overall atmosphere rather than separate from it. Above, the sky continues to change, the colours deepening as the sun lowers further, the gold shifting into softer tones, the brightness fading into something more muted. The light that reaches the village now is gentler, stretching across surfaces in longer shadows, touching the edges of walls and objects before slowly slipping away. And as you move through this space, you begin to feel more connected to it. Not as an outsider observing something unfamiliar, but as someone moving within a place that follows a clear, steady rhythm. Nothing here feels rushed, nothing feels forced. Everything unfolds at the pace it needs to, guided by the light, by the air, by the quiet presence of the Nile just beyond. You can still sense the river behind you, even without turning back. It remains a constant, anchor that shapes everything around it. The village does not exist separately from it, it grows from it, depends on it, moves in time with it. And now, as the evening continues to settle, as the light softens further and the air cools just a little more, you find yourself fully within this space, surrounded by the simple forms of the homes, the quiet movement of people finishing their day, and the gentle, steady rhythm of life along the Nile, carrying you forward into the next part of the evening without any need to hurry, without any need to hold on to the moment, just allowing it to unfold around you. As you continue moving slowly through the village, your eyes begin to settle more naturally into the space, no longer searching for anything in particular, just noticing what is there. The paths narrow and open again in gentle patterns, guiding you without needing direction. And the homes around you begin to feel less like separate structures and more like parts of a single connected place. Nothing stands out sharply, nothing demands attention, and yet every small detail contributes to the quiet sense of life continuing all around you. The surfaces of the walls catch the loss of the sunlight in soft, uneven ways, their texture becoming more visible as the light lowers. You can see where hands have shaped them, where small repairs have been made, where time has left its subtle marks. These are not imperfections here, they are part of the structure itself, part of what makes each home what it is. The color of the earth shifts slightly from one wall to another, depending on how it was made, how long it has stood, how it has been cared for, and the fading light deepens those tones into something warmer, something more grounded. Above, the sky continues its slow transition, the brightness giving way to richer colors that stretch outward in long, quiet layers. The sun is lower now, closer to the horizon, and its light reaches across the village at an angle, touching the upper edges of the homes, catching on the corners, the roofs, the small objects left out in the open. Shadows grow longer, not suddenly but gradually, stretching across the ground and along the walls, softening the sharpness of everything. You begin to notice how the village responds to this change without needing to be told. Movement becomes slower, more contained, as if everyone is aware, in the same quiet way, that the day is nearing its end. A person who had been walking across the open space now pauses near a doorway, setting something down, their posture easing slightly as the final task is completed. Another figure moves along the edge of a wall carrying a small bundle, their steps steady, unhurried, their attention focused, but calm. The sounds around you remain soft, but they shift in subtle ways. The murmur of voices is still there, but quieter now, fewer words spoken, more space between them. The movement of objects, the placing of something on the ground, the slight brushing of fabric as someone passes by, all of it blending into a gentle background that feels consistent, never rising above the calm of the moment. If you move toward a slightly more open area, you may catch a glimpse of the river again, just beyond the homes. The surface now reflecting a deeper tone of light, the gold of earlier moments beginning to fade into something more muted, more subdued. The boats that were moving before are closer now, some nearing the edge of the bank, their motion slowing even further as they approach a place of rest. The rhythm of the oars has softened, each move, spaced out a little more, the need for speed no longer present. The people guiding those boats move with the same quiet efficiency you've seen throughout the village. There is no dramatic arrival, no raised voices or sudden activity, just a steady return, a continuation of the day's rhythm into its final moments. The boats are guided carefully, brought close to the bank, secured with simple practice movements that require no explanation. Back within the village, the light continues to shift, becoming softer with each passing moment. The warmth of the sun is still there, but it no longer presses down in the same way. Instead, it lingers gently on the surfaces it touches, as if reluctant to leave completely. The air feels more balanced now, no longer heavy with heat, but not yet fully cool, resting somewhere in between. You might notice small details that were less visible before. The way the ground dips slightly in certain places, shaped by water long ago, or by repeated footsteps over time. The way a doorway is framed by slightly smoother edges, worn by use, touched again and again as people pass through. The way objects are placed just outside a home, not randomly, but where, they can be easily reached when needed. Everything here carries a sense of familiarity, not just for the people who live in the village, but for the space itself. It feels settled, lived in, shaped by routine rather than change. Nothing is new in the sense of being untouched, but everything is maintained in a way that allows it to continue, day after day, evening after evening. As the sun lowers further, nearing the point where it will slip beyond the horizon, the colours in the sky deepen once more, the gold giving way to softer shades, hints of orange and muted red beginning to appear. The reflection in the Nile changes with it, the surface no longer bright, but still carrying the memory of the light in its gentle movement. The village grows quieter still, not empty, not inactive, but more contained. The final tasks are nearly complete, the movement of people becoming less frequent, more purposeful, each action leading toward the close of the day. There is no sense of rushing to finish, only a steady progression toward a natural stopping point. And as you stand within this space, surrounded by the simple forms of the homes, the fading light, the soft sounds of evening, you begin to feel that same slowing within yourself. Your attention settles more easily, your thoughts become less defined, less urgent, carried gently along by the rhythm of the place. There is nothing here that asks for more than your presence. Nothing that needs to be followed closely or remembered. Only the quiet continuation of the day as it moves toward night. The Nile still flowing just beyond the village, the light still softening across the sky, and everything slowly, gently coming to rest. As the sun lowers further, nearing the edge of the horizon, the change becomes more noticeable now, not sudden, but clearer, as if the entire landscape is quietly preparing for what comes next. The light stretches longer across the ground, thinning slightly, losing its strength while gaining a softer, deeper tone. The warmth that filled the day begins to ease, no longer pressing down from above, but lingering gently in the air and in the earth beneath your feet. From the direction of the river, the movement becomes easier to see again. The boats that were once distant are now close to the bank, their forms more defined against the dimming light. They move slowly, guided with care. The oars dip, ping into the water and lifting again in steady, practiced motions. Each movement is quieter than before, as if even the act of returning has softened with the evening. When one of the boats reaches the edge, it does not stop abruptly. It glides the final distance, touching the bank gently, guided by hands that know exactly how much pressure is needed, how much space to leave, how to bring it to rest without disturbance. A rope is secured, simple, functional, holding the boat in place so it will remain there through the night. The person who has guided it steps out, their feet meeting the firm earth with familiarity, not needing to look down, not needing to adjust. The movement from water to land is smooth, practiced, repeated countless times before. There is no pause to admire the moment, no need to mark the end of the journey. It is simply part of the day, another step in a sequence that continues without interruption. Nearby, another boat follows, arriving in much the same way, each one returning to its place along the river's edge. There is no crowd gathering, no exchange of loud words, only small gestures, quiet acknowledgements, movements that are understood without explanation. The work of the river is complete for now, and what remains is the transition back into the stillness of the village. The sound of the water changes slightly as the boats settle. The gentle lapping against their sides creates a softer rhythm, more contained, more regular, as if the river itself is easing into a slower pace. The breeze that moves across its surface carries a faint coolness now, more noticeable than before, brushing lightly through the open spaces between the homes and along the narrow paths. Back within the village, the final moments of work are being completed. A person near one of the homes lifts a container and carries it inside, the motion steady and unhurried. Another adjusts something just outside a doorway, setting it in place, ensuring it will be ready for the morning. These are not large tasks, not things that draw attention, but they matter in a quiet way, shaping what comes next. The light continues to fade, the sun now touching the horizon, its lower edge beginning to disappear. The sky deepens in color, the gold softening into richer tones, orange blending into muted red, and beyond that a growing depth that hints at the night to come. The reflectio test. N across the Nile changes with it, no longer bright but still carrying the warmth of what remains. You begin to notice how everything moves in response to this moment. The pace of the village slows even further, the small movements becoming fewer, more deliberate. People who are outside begin to move toward their homes, not quickly, not with urgency, but with a quiet understanding that the day is ending. Doorways that were open remain open still, but the activity around them shifts inward, becoming less visible, more contained. The ground beneath you feels slightly cooler now, the heat of the day continuing to release, but no longer building. The air carries a balance between what was and what is coming, holding the last of the warmth, while allowing the coolness of evening to settle in. If you glance once more toward the river, you can see how calm it has become. The movement is still there, constant, unchanged, but the light no longer defines it in the same way. The surface darkens slightly, reflecting less of the sky and more of the growing depth above it. The boats, now still, rest quietly along the bank, their shapes blending more into the surrounding dimness. And as this continues, as the sun slips further down and the light softens even more, there is a sense that something has been completed. Not in a dramatic way, not with any clear signal, but in the quiet understanding that the work of the day has reached its natural end. There is nothing left that requires the light of the sun, nothing that must be done before it disappears completely. Only the gentle transition into evening, into the time when the village draws inward, when the river becomes a quieter presence, when the sky deepens and the world begins to rest. And you remain there, within this space, watching the final moments of sunlight stretch across the land, feeling the air shift around you, noticing how everything, without effort, without instruction, moves toward stillness carried by the same steady rhythm that flows through the Nile itself. As the last edge of the sun slips below the horizon, the change is felt more than seen, a quiet shift that moves through the river, through the air, through the village itself. The light does not vanish all at once, it lingers for a moment, stretched thin across the sky, leaving behind a soft glow that slowly fades into deeper tones. The war, Tanti. MTH that held through the day now begins to release more fully, the air growing cooler, not suddenly, but in a steady, almost unnoticeable way. Near the riverbank, the boats have come to rest completely, their movement replaced by stillness, held gently in place by the current and the simple ropes that secure them. The water continues to flow as it always has, but now its surface reflects less of the sky and more of the growing darkness above. The gentle sound of it remains, steady and quiet, a constant presence that does not change even as everything else around it shifts. The people who guided those boats have already begun to move away from the water, their steps slow and familiar as they return toward the village. There is no need to look back, no need to check what has been done. The work is finished, and the rhythm carries them forward without hesitation. Their silhouettes, once clearly outlined in the warm light, begin to soften, blending more into the dimming landscape as they move along the well-worn paths. As you follow that same direction, moving gently back through the village, the change becomes clearer in the way the space feels. The open areas that once held the brig of the day now begin to dim, the edges of the homes less defined, the details less sharp. The walls, which earlier caught the light in warm tones, now hold a deeper colour, their surfaces fading gradually into shadow. Doorways that were once filled with movement now grow quieter. Some remain open, allowing the last of the evening air to pass through, while others are partially covered, not fully closed, but adjusted in a way that signals the shift from day into night. Inside, the faint suggestion of activity continues, but it is no longer visible in the same way, no longer something you can easily observe from outside. The paths between the homes become softer under your feet, not in texture, but in presence, as if the dimming light has taken away some of their clarity. You move through them more by memory than by sight, guided by the natural flow of the village, by the way each space leads into the next, without needing to be clearly marked. The sounds change as well. The quiet murmur of voices fades further, becoming less frequent, more distant, as people settle into their homes. What remains are smaller sounds, the shifting of objects, the closing of a space, the faint move, meant of someone passing just out of view. All of it blends into a soft background, a kind of quiet that feels complete rather than empty. Above, the sky continues its transition, the last traces of gold and orange giving way to deeper shades, the first hints of night beginning to appear. The brightness that once filled the entire space has narrowed, concentrated now along the horizon, while the rest of the sky deepens into a calm, open darkness. The breeze that moves through the village carries more of the river's coolness now, slipping between the homes, brushing lightly against the walls, passing through open spaces and narrow paths alike. It is not strong, not enough to disturb anything, just present, a gentle reminder of the changing time. If you pause for a moment, standing within the village as it settles, you can feel how everything has shifted. The activity of the day has not ended abruptly, it has simply faded, replaced by something quieter, something more contained. The energy that once moved outward, toward the fields, toward the river, now draws inward, toward the homes, toward the spaces where the rest of the evening will unfold. The river remains just beyond, still flowing, never owing, still steady, but no longer the center of visible activity. Its presence is quieter now, felt rather than seen, heard rather than watched. It continues as it always has, unaffected by the changes around it, a constant within a world that moves through cycles of light and dark. As you stand there, surrounded by the soft outlines of the homes, the dimming sky above, and the quiet presence of the village settling into night, you begin to feel that same stillness within yourself. Your attention no longer moves quickly from one detail to another. It rests more easily, more gently, allowing the moment to unfold without needing to follow it closely. There is nothing here that asks for urgency, nothing that needs to be finished. Only the continuation of the evening moving steadily into night, guided by the fading light, the cooling air, and the quiet rhythm of life along the Nile, where everything slows, everything softens, and everything finds its place without effort. As the last light fades completely and the sky deepens into a calm, steady darkness, the village settles further into itself, drawing inward in a way that feels natural, almost expected. The open spaces between the movement that once passed through them now shifting indoors into spaces where the night will be spent. The paths remain, the same worn lines in the earth, but they are no longer the center of activity, only quiet passages that hold the memory of the day's movement. If you continue walking gently through the village, your attention begins to shift toward the homes themselves, toward the spaces where the evening now unfolds. The doorways, some still open, offer only faint glimpses of what lies inside, the light within softer and more contained than the fading glow outside. There is no strong illumination, nothing that reaches far beyond the walls, just a dim, steady presence that suggests warmth, that suggests life continuing in quieter ways. The walls of these homes, built from mud brick and shaped by hand, hold the last of the day's warmth within them. As the air cools, that stored heat begins to release slowly, creating a gentle balance inside, neither too warm nor too cool, but steady, comfortable in its own simple way. The thickness of the walls serves its purpose now, not just protecting from the sun, but holding on to what remains of it, allowing the transition into night to happen gradually rather than all at once. If you pause near one of the entrances and allow your eyes to adjust, you can begin to make out the interior more clearly. The space is simple, not large, not divided into many separate areas, but open enough to serve the needs of those who live there. The floor is packed earth, smooth in places where it has been used most often, slightly uneven where time and movement have shaped it. There is little in the way of furniture as you might think of it now. Instead, there are low surfaces, woven mats, simple objects placed where they are needed. Each item has a purpose. Nothing exists without reason, and nothing is left where it does not belong. The arrangement of the space reflects the rhythm of daily life, the way people move, the way they sit, the way they work. A faint light source, small and controlled, rests within the room, not bright enough to fill the entire space, but enough to reveal what is close by. It may come from a small oil lamp or a contained flame, carefully maintained, used only as much as needed. The light it gives is soft, steady, creating a small circle of visibility while leaving the edges of the room in shadow. The air inside carries a mixture of subtle scents, earth, perhaps traces of food prepared earlier, the faint presence of oil or smoke from the lamp. Nothing is overwhelming, nothing stands out sharply, everything blending into a quiet, familiar atmosphere that feels consistent, unchanged. The people within the home move more slowly now, their actions smaller, more contained. A person adjusts something near the floor, another shifts position slightly, settling into a place where they will remain for a while. There is no urgency, no need to hurry, only the continuation of the evening in its quieter form. If you step back slightly and look at the homes as a whole, you begin to understand how they function together, not just as individual spaces, but as part of the village itself. Each one holds its own quiet activity, its own small circle of light. And together they create a pattern across the landscape, small points of life within the surrounding darkness. Above, the sky has deepened further, the last traces of evening gone, replaced by a wide, open expanse of night. The stars begin to appear, faint at first, then more clearly as your eyes adjust, scattered across in a way that feels both distant and close at the same time. They do not illuminate the ground, but they add to the sense of openness, of space extending far beyond the village. The breeze continues to move gently, carrying the cooler air from the river, passing through the spaces between the homes, through open doorways, across the surfaces of the walls. It does not disturb anything, only touches lightly, part of the quiet presence of the night. And as you remain there, near the entrance of one of these homes, observing the simple interior, the soft light, the slow movements of the people within, you begin to feel how contained this world is, not limited in a restrictive way, but held together by its simplicity. Everything needed for the night is here, within reach, within understanding. The outside world has faded into darkness, but inside, within these walls, the evening continues, steady and calm. Shaped by the same rhythm that has guided the entire day, there is nothing here that feels uncertain, nothing that feels out of place. Only the quiet continuation of life as it moves from day into night, from movement into stillness, from the open space of the river into the in-ed warmth of the home. And as that shift completes itself, you find yourself drawn more fully into this space, into this slower rhythm, where everything is settled and the night has truly begun. As the night settles more fully over the village, the quiet activity inside the homes begins to take on a slightly different rhythm, slower, more grounded, centered around the final shared moments of the evening. Within the soft glow of the small lamps, attention turns gently toward food, not as a grand event, not as something elaborate, but as a simple continuation of the day, something steady and familiar. In one of the homes, the faint light reveals a low working area where food is being prepared in its most basic form. There is no rush in the movements, no sense of urgency, only repetition shaped by habit. A small container is brought closer, its contents already known, grain that has been ground earlier, flour that has been worked and prepared during the day when the light was stronger and time more open. The process now is simple but careful. The dough already formed is handled with steady hands, pressed and shaped without hesitation, each motion practiced, each step understood, without needing to be thought through. The surface beneath it bears the marks of many such preparations, smooth in places, worn gently by time and use. Nearby, a small heat source has been maintained, not large, not dramatic, but enough to cook what is needed. The warmth it gives is focused, controlled, used efficiently, much like the fire in the earlier story, but quieter here, less central, more contained within the flow of the room. The bread is placed carefully, turned at the right moment, watched without being stared at, the process unfolding in a calm, steady rhythm. The scent of it begins to rise slowly, not strong, not overwhelming, but noticeable, a simple, grounding presence in the air. It mixes with the other subtle scents of the room, the earth, the faint trace of oil from the lamp, the quiet warmth of the enclosed space. A drink is prepared as well, something familiar, something that has been part of the day from beginning to end. It is not treated as separate from the meal, but as part of it, something that is shared, passed from one to another, without ceremony, without excessor. The people in the room gather closer, not all at once, not in a formal arrangement, but not at all, drawn by the shared purpose of the moment. There is no set seating in the way we might expect, only places that feel familiar, where each person settles without needing to choose. The food, once ready, is placed within reach, not divided into separate portions, but shared as a whole. Each person takes what they need, not measured precisely, but with an understanding that comes from repetition, from knowing how much is enough, how much should remain. There is little conversation, and what words are spoken are quiet, simple, not meant to carry far. The act of eating does not require noise, does not call for attention. It unfolds in the same calm rhythm as everything else, steady, unhurried, complete in its simplicity. The light from the lamp flickers gently as people move, creating soft shifts in shadow across the walls. Faces are illuminated from one side, the rest fading into the dimness, giving the room a sense of depth that changes subtly with each small movement. If you watch closely, you can see how careful everything is. Nothing is wasted. Each piece of food is taken with purpose, each movement deliberate without feeling restricted. The shared nature of the meal carry ease through every action, each person aware of the others without needing to look directly. The children sit quietly, their movements smaller, their attention focused, not distracted, not restless. They eat as they have learned to eat, within the rhythm of the household, without interruption, without excess. There is a calmness in their presence that mirrors the rest of the room. The adults eat steadily as well, not slowly for the sake of it, but without haste, their pace matching the quiet tone of the evening. The day's work still lingers in their posture, but it begins to soften, eased slightly by the warmth of the food, by the stillness of the moment. And as the meal continues, there is no sense of building towards something more. There are no courses that follow, no additions waiting to extend the experience. What is here is enough. It serves its purpose. It completes this part of the day, and it does so without needing to be more than it is. The river, though no longer visible from inside, remains present in the background of everything, in the water that was carried, in the grain that was grown, in the rhythm that shaped the day itself. It is part of the meal in ways that do not to need to be spoken, part of the quiet understanding that connects every part of life here. And slowly, without any clear signal, the meal begins to come to an end. A final piece is taken. A container is set aside. The small movements of eating give way to stillness once again. Nothing is left scattered, nothing abandoned without purpose. What remains will be kept, used again, carried forward into the next day. The room returns to a quieter state, the lamp still burning softly, the warmth of the meal lingering, the presence of the people settling back into the steady rhythm of the night. And within that quiet, within that simple, Shared moment now completed, the evening continues, moving gently forward, deeper into stillness, deeper into rest, guided by the same calm, unbroken flow that has carried everything from the beginning. As the meal settles into quiet stillness and the small movements of eating fade away, the space within the home begins to shift once again, not into silence exactly, but into a softer, more settled kind of activity. The shared moment has passed, and what follows is gentle, unhurried, almost instinctive. The lamp continues to burn with a small, steady flame, its light reaching only as far as it needs to, illuminating hands, surfaces, and the immediate space, while the rest of the room remains wrapped in shadow. The table, or the low surface where the meal took place, is not cleared all at once. There is no sudden change, no quick gathering of everything into order. Instead, the process unfolds slowly, naturally, as part of the same rhythm that guided the meal itself. A hand reaches forward to adjust a container, another wipes a surface with a simple motion, not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Each movement is quiet, deliberate, done without interruption. Nothing here is treated as disposable. What has been used is returned carefully, set aside in a place where it will be found again. The remaining food, small as it may be, is not discarded. It is kept, saved for later, part of a continuous cycle that carries forward from one day into the next. Even the smallest portion has value, not just because it is food, but because of the effort it represents. The children remain nearby, their presence quieter now, their energy softened by the evening. One may shift closer to the wall, settling into a comfortable position, while another highs. The small movements of the adults, learning without being told, observing the way things are done, the way order returns without urgency. The adults move through these final tasks with familiarity, not dividing roles in any formal way, but understanding what needs to be done. A container is lifted and placed near the wall. A surface is cleared. A small object is adjusted, set back where it belongs. There is no conversation guiding this, no instruction given. The rhythm is known. The light from the lamp flickers gently, responding to the subtle movement of air within the room. Its flame bends slightly, then steadies again, casting soft shadows that shift across the walls. These shadows do not distract, they blend into the quiet atmosphere, becoming part of it, part of the calm that fills the space. As the room settles further, the sense of activity begins to ease. What remains is not work in the usual sense, but something softer, something that exists between action and rest. A person may sit more fully now, their posture relaxing, their hands no longer occupied. Another may adjust their position, leaning slightly, allowing the weight of the day to settle more deeply. Outside, and the village continues in the same quiet pattern. Each home holds its own small circle of light, each one containing its own version of this same moment. The meal completed, the final tasks winding down, the night gently taking hold. There are no loud sounds, no sudden interruptions, only the distant, almost indistinct presence of others moving through the same rhythm. If you listen carefully, you may still hear the river, faint now, softened by distance and by the walls that enclose the space. Its steady movement continues, unchanged, a quiet reminder that even as the village settles, the flow of the Nile remains constant, carrying everything forward in its own time. The air inside the home feels balanced, holding just enough warmth from the day and from the presence of people within it, while the cooler night air moves gently through openings, keeping everything calm, steady. It is not still, not completely, but it does not disturb anything. As the last of the small tasks come to an end, the room reaches a kind of pause. Not a complete stop, not silence, but a moment where nothing more is needed. Everything is in place. Everything that could be done has been done. And within that, guess, something else begins to emerge. A deeper stillness. The kind that does not come from the absence of activity, but from the completion of it. The lamp continues to burn quietly. The people remain present, but no longer moving with purpose. The room holds its shape, its warmth, its quiet balance, and the night, steady and complete beyond the walls, continues to settle in gently, without interruption, carrying the evening forward into its next, even quieter phase. As the room settles into that deeper quiet, the rhythm shifts once again, almost without being noticed. moving from the shared space of the meal into something more personal, more contained. The small tasks have been completed, the surface is cleared, the objects return to their places, and now what remains is softer, more repetitive, the kind of work that belongs to the later hours of the evening. The lamp is adjusted slightly, brought closer to where it is needed most, its small flame steady but limited, casting a focused light that reveals only what lies directly before it. Beyond that circle, the room fades gently into shadow, the edges of the walls less distinct, the space feeling smaller, more enclosed. Teetry. At rest, one of the women sits near this light, bringing with her something that has been part of the day but not yet finished. A small bundle of fibers, perhaps flax or another material, prepared earlier, but now ready to be worked into thread. She settles into a position that feels familiar, one that allows her hands to move freely, without strain, without interruption. Her movements begin slowly, almost as if remembering the rhythm, and then continue with quiet consistency. The fibers are drawn out, twisted gently, shaped into something stronger, something that will be used again and again. There is no rush in it, no need to complete it quickly. This is work that belongs to time itself, repeating each evening, continuing as long as there is light enough to see. The sound it makes is barely there, a soft, almost inaudible movement, the slight friction of fiber between fingers, the gentle turning of the hand. It blends into the quiet of the room, joining the faint crackle of the lamp, the soft shifting of someone settling nearby. If you watch closely, you can see how practiced the motion is. There is no hesitation, no uncertainty. Each movement follows the one before it, forming a steady pattern that does not need to be thought through. The hands know what to do, guided by repetition, by years of doing the same work in the same way. Nearby, another piece of work may be taken up, something that needs to be repaired, a section of cloth worn thin, a seam that has loosened. It is handled with care, not because it is delicate, but because it is valuable. Nothing here is easily replaced. Everything is maintained, extended, kept in use for as long as possible. The needle passes through the fabric in small, even motions, each stitch placed carefully, not perfectly, but with enough precision to hold. The thread tightens, the material draws together, and what was once weak becomes strong again, ready to be used another day. There is no separation between this work and the rest of the evening. It is not treated as something extra, something optional. It is simply part of the rhythm, part of what must be done, carried out in the quiet hours when the larger tasks have already been completed. The children remain nearby, their presence softer now, less active, but still part of the space. One may watch for a moment, eyes following the movement of the hands, not fully standing yet, but absorbing the pattern, the repetition, the quiet focus. Another may have already settled into stillness, their attention drifting, their body relaxing into the warmth of the room. The man sits within the same space, his role in this moment different, less active, but no less present. He may rest, his posture easing, his attention no longer fixed on work, but still aware of the room, of the people within it, of the quiet continuation of the evening. The lamp flickers slightly as the air moves, its flame bending and straightening again, never going out, but never growing large. It is carefully maintained, just enough to serve its purpose, just enough to allow the work to continue. If you look around the room now, you can see how everything has become more contained. The movement is minimal, the sounds are soft, the light is limited. The outside world has faded almost completely, leaving only the interior, the small, steady space where life continues in its quietest form. The river is still there, beyond the walls, flowing as it always does, but now it is only a distant presence, something you can sense rather than see. Its sound, if it reaches you at all, is faint, blending into the background of the night, and within this space time feels different. It is no longer marked by the position of the sun, no longer divided by tasks that must be completed before the light fades. Instead, it moves gently, measured by the repetition of small actions, by the gradual softening of movement, by the slow approach of rest. The work continues, steady and quiet, each motion following the next, each small task, bringing the evening closer to its final stillness. There is no urgency here, no pressure to finish, only the continuation of something familiar, something that has always been part of this time of day. And as you remain there, watching the slow, careful movements, listening to the soft sounds, feeling the calm that fills the room. You begin to feel that same rhythm within yourself. Your attention settles, your thoughts slow, and the quiet work of the evening carries you gently forward, deeper into the night, where everything becomes softer, simpler, and more at rest. Work begins to slow, and the steady movements of hands gradually come to rest. Another gentle shift takes place within the room, one that moves the evening closer to its final stage. The tasks that filled these last hours are no longer needed, and what remains is softer, more inward, shaped less by action and more by presence. The lamp continues to glow faintly, its small flame steady, casting just enough light to hold the space together. The children, who have been sitting nearby, begin to settle more fully now. Their movements grow slower, less defined, their attention drifting away from the small details of the room. One leans slightly against the wall, their posture softening, their head lowering as the weight of the day begins to take hold. Another shifts closer to a mat laid out on the floor, drawn not by instruction but by a quiet, familiar understanding of what comes next. There is no clear signal that it is time to sleep. No words are needed to announce it. The rhythm of the evening has carried everyone to this point naturally, and the body responds without needing direction. The children move gently, unhurried, finding their places within the space where you will rest. The sleeping area is simple, part of the same room, not separated by walls or doors. Mats are laid out, woven from natural materials, soft enough to provide comfort, firm enough to hold their shape. Blankets or coverings, worn and carefully maintained, are placed nearby, ready to be used as the night deepens and the air cools further. One child lowers themselves onto the mat, adjusting slightly, finding a position that feels familiar, that requires no effort to maintain. Another follows, settling nearby, their movements quiet, their presence blending into the stillness that is beginning to take hold of the room. Before they fully drift into sleep, there is often a brief pause, a small moment that carries meaning without needing to be spoken loudly. A few soft words may be exchanged, or perhaps a quiet phrase repeated, something remembered, something that has been part of this routine for as long as they can recall. It is not long, not elaborate, but it marks the transition, the gentle step from waking into rest. The meaning behind it is simple but deep. The night is not something entirely known, not something entirely controlled. It brings with it a quiet uncertainty. History books have never. And so this small moment serves as a kind of acknowledgement, a recognition of the passage from one part of the day into another. The children accept it without question. It is part of the rhythm, just like everything else. They settle further, their breathing beginning to slow, their bodies relaxing more fully as the awareness of the room starts to fade. The darkness within the space becomes more noticeable now, not because the light has disappeared, but because the focus has shifted away from it. The lamp still burns, but its presence is softer, less central. The edges of the room remain in shadow, and within those shadows, shapes lose their clarity, becoming less defined, less important. For a moment, the night outside feels closer, not in a threatening way, but in a quiet, undeniable presence. Beyond the walls, the Nile continues its steady flow, unseen but constant. The open sky stretches above, filled with stars that do not reach into the room, but exist just beyond it, part of a much larger world. And yet, within this space, there is comfort, the closeness of others, the warmth held within the walls, the familiarity of the room, the objects, the rhythm that has guided the ent today. These things remain steady and reliable, holding the darkness at a gentle distance. The adults continue to move quietly for a short while longer, their actions now minimal, preparing themselves for rest in the same unhurried way. A final adjustment here, a small movement there, nothing that disrupts the calm that has settled. The lamp may be checked, its flame adjusted slightly to ensure it will last, or perhaps to reduce its brightness further. Every small detail is considered, not out of concern but out of habit, out of an understanding that the night will continue for many hours, and that everything should be prepared to carry through it. The children are now still, their breathing even, their bodies fully at rest. Their awareness has faded from the room, from the light, from the quiet sounds that remain. They have crossed that gentle boundary into sleep, carried there by the steady rhythm of the evening, and as they rest, The room itself grows quieter still, the last traces of movement fading, leaving behind only the soft presence of the lamp, the calm air, and the quiet continuation of the night within these simple walls along the Nile. As the children settle fully into sleep and the last small movements in the room begin to fade, the night takes on a deeper, more complete stillness. The lamp, now dimmer than before, continues to burn with a small, steady flame, but its presence is no longer central. It no longer defines the room in the same way. Instead, it becomes just one quiet element within a space that is gradually surrendering to darkness. The adults, who remained awake just a little longer, now begin their own transition into rest. There is no extended routine, no separation between activity and sleep, only a slow easing into stillness. One shifts their position, lowering themselves onto a mat, adjusting slightly until the body finds a natural place to settle. Another pauses for a moment, glancing once around the room, not searching for anything in particular, but simply acknowledging that everything is as it should be. The lamp is considered one final time. Its flame is gently reduced, or perhaps extinguished altogether, depending on what is needed. The room responds immediately. Without that small source of light, the darkness becomes fuller, more complete, though never entirely empty. The faint glow from the sky outside, the subtle, ever outline of shapes within the room remain just enough to suggest the space without revealing it fully. The air feels cooler now, the warmth of the day having mostly passed, replaced by the calm, steady coolness of the night. It moves gently through the room, entering through small openings, slipping between spaces, touching surfaces without disturbing them. It is not cold, only different, a quiet reminder that the world beyond the walls continues to change. The sounds that remain are few and soft, the quiet breathing of those who sleep steady and even, the faint occasional shift of the structure itself, a subtle creak as the materials respond to the cooler air, and somewhere beyond the walls the distant, almost indistinct presence of the Nile, still flowing, still constant, its sound softened by distance and by the quiet that surrounds it. Outside, the village mirrors this same stillness. Each home has settled into rest, each space holding its own quiet, its own darkness. There are no voices now, no movement passing between the homes, only the faint suggestion of life continuing within them, unseen, unheard. The sky above is clear and wide, filled with stars that stretch across. Darkness in quiet patterns. They do not illuminate the ground, but they fill the space above with a gentle presence, something distant yet constant, something that has always been there. Inside, the room has become almost entirely still. The shapes of the walls, the mats, the small objects that make up the space are no longer clearly visible. They exist now as soft outlines, suggested rather than seen, their details fading into the background of the night. Time begins to lose its structure here. There is no movement to mark it, no light to measure it, no tasks to divide it. The hours pass without being noticed, blending into one another in a continuous, unbroken flow. If you imagine yourself still present in this space, your awareness begins to follow that same pattern. There is less to observe, less to focus on, and so your attention softens, becoming lighter, less defined. The need to follow any particular detail fades, replaced by a gentle sense of being within the moment without needing to hold on to it. The room holds this quiet completely now. Nothing more is expected. Nothing more needs to happen. The day has ended fully, the night has taken its place, and everything will. Thin this small home rests within that steady, unchanging calm. The Nile continues to flow beyond the walls, unseen but present, the same quiet movement that began the day now carrying it through the night. The air remains cool and still. The stars remain fixed above, and within this space there is only rest. A deep, uninterrupted stillness that holds everything gently in place, allowing the night to continue exactly as it is, without change, without interruption, without any need for it to be otherwise. Now the night has settled completely, and what remains is a kind of stillness that feels deeper than before, not just the absence of movement, but the presence of rest itself. The room is quiet in a way that no longer changes, no longer shifts, with small tasks or fading activity. Everything has reached its natural pause, and nothing asks to move forward any further. If you imagine yourself still there, within the dim, barely visible space, your awareness begins to soften in the same way the room has. There is very little to see now. The shapes of the walls, the outlines of the mats, the forms of the people resting nearby, all remain, but only faintly, only as suggestions. Your eye, to my WS. No longer search for detail, because there is none that needs to be found. The air feels cooler now, more even, the warmth of the day fully released. It moves gently, almost imperceptibly, carrying with it the quiet presence of the night. It does not disturb anything, it does not shift the space, it simply exists, steady and calm. The sounds are fewer still. A slow, even rhythm of breathing fills the room, soft and consistent, rising and falling without interruption. It is not something you focus on directly, but something that becomes part of the background, something that holds the silence together rather than breaking it. From beyond the walls, the Nile continues its endless movement. You cannot see it now, but it is there, just as it always is, flowing steadily through the darkness. If its sound reaches you at all, it is faint, almost imagined, blending so completely into the stillness that it feels less like a sound and more like a presence. The house itself seems to rest. The materials that form it, the earth, the wood, the fibers, all have settled into the cooler night. There are no more shifts, no more small adjustments. It holds its shape quietly, without effort, as if Tonti too, has drifted into sleep. Time no longer feels like something that is moving. There is no sense of before or after, no awareness of how long you have been here or how much night remains. Each moment is the same as the one before it, not in repetition, but in stillness, in the absence of anything that would mark change. If a small sound occurs, the faintest shift, the softest movement, it does not draw attention in the way it might have earlier. It passes through the space without leaving anything behind, without interrupting the calm. Your thoughts begin to follow this same pattern. They no longer form clearly, no longer connect in structured ways. A small impression may appear, then fade. A sense of the river, a memory of the warm light from earlier, the feeling of the air as it cooled. But none of it remains long enough to hold. Everything moves softly. Everything passes. There is no need to follow any of it. The boundaries of the room feel less important now, less defined. The inside and the outside are no longer separate in the same way. The darkness beyond the walls feels like an extension of the space within, part of the same quiet, the same stillness. The sky, though to never. Stretches endlessly above, filled with stars that remain distant and silent. The river continues below, unseen and steady. And between them, this small home rests, unchanged, holding its quiet shape within the night. Your breathing slows further. Your awareness becomes lighter. The need to notice anything at all begins to fade. There is nothing here that requires attention. Nothing that needs to be understood. Only this quiet, steady presence. The night continuing, unbroken, unchanging. And as you remain within it, even the sense of remaining begins to soften, becoming less distinct, less necessary, until it too begins to fade into the same stillness that has taken hold of everything around you. And as that stillness continues, as the night holds its quiet shape without change, something within your awareness begins to loosen even further, becoming softer, less defined, no longer anchored to any one place. The room is still there, the house, the river beyond, the wide sky above, but they feel more distant now, not gone, just gently fading into the background, like something remembered rather than something seen. The sense of being inside the home begins to blur slightly, as never. If the boundaries that once held the space together are no longer as important, the walls no longer feel solid in the same way, the distance between inside and outside no longer clearly defined. Everything seems to exist within the same quiet, the same calm, the same steady presence that fills the night. Your thoughts move differently now. They do not form in clear patterns. They do not follow one another in any structured way. Instead, they drift. A soft image may appear, the surface of the Nile at dusk, the last light touching the water, the slow movement of a boat returning to the shore. It lingers only for a moment, then fades, replaced by something else. Perhaps the feeling of warm earth beneath your feet, or the gentle brush of evening air moving across the land. None of it stays long. Nothing asks to be held. Each thought arrives quietly, then disappears just as softly, leaving no trace behind. The rhythm of it is slow, unhurried, almost weightless. The sounds of the world, if they are noticed at all, feel distant, softened beyond clarity. The river, the air, the quiet breathing of those resting nearby, all blend into something continuous, something that no longer stands apart. As separate sounds, but becomes a single gentle presence. Time has almost no meaning here. There is no sense of how long anything lasts. No awareness of movement from one moment to the next. Everything feels suspended, held within a quiet that does not change. The sky above, though no longer visible, seems to remain present in a different way, an open, endless space that stretches beyond thought, beyond form. The stars, distant and silent, exist without needing to be seen, part of something much larger, something that continues whether you notice it or not. The river, too, continues its steady flow, but now it feels less like something external and more like a quiet rhythm that exists alongside everything else, not separate, not distant. Just part of the same calm, uninterrupted motion. And within all of this, there is nothing to do. No need to follow any image. No need to understand any thought. No need to return to anything that has passed. Everything moves gently on its own. Everything fades when it is ready. There is no effort required. No direction to choose. Only a soft, steady drifting. Your awareness becomes lighter still, less focused, less defined. The sense of the bow, die begins to soften, becoming less noticeable, less present. It is still there, resting, supported, but it no longer asks for attention. It no longer needs to be felt clearly. And as this continues, even the idea of where you are begins to lose its clarity. The village, the home, the river, all remain, but only as faint impressions, as quiet suggestions that no longer need to be held in place. Everything blends together. Everything softens. Everything becomes part of the same gentle stillness. And within that stillness, there is a kind of ease that does not need to be created. It is already there. It has been there all along. There is nothing missing, nothing needed. Only the quiet continuation of the night, carrying everything forward without effort, without change, without interruption. And as you drift further into that calm, even this awareness begins to fade, becoming softer, less distinct, until it blends completely into the stillness that surrounds it. And somewhere within that quiet drifting, where thoughts no longer hold their shape, and the world has softened into something distant and gentle, a different kind of awareness moves quietly through, not strong enough to pull why. You back, not clear enough to become a full thought, but present in a subtle, almost unnoticeable way. It does not interrupt the calm, it becomes part of it, blending into the same slow rhythm that has carried everything to this point. It is the feeling of how simple this moment is. Not simple because it lacks anything, but simple because nothing more is needed. The river continues to flow, whether it is seen or not. The night stretches above, wide and still. The small home rests quietly along the edge of the Nile, holding within it everything it needs for this moment. Nothing is unfinished. Nothing is waiting. And without needing to compare, you begin to sense the difference between this and the way time often feels elsewhere. The constant movement, the endless light, the quiet pressure to continue, to move, to think, to respond. Here there is none of that. The day has ended completely, not paused, not delayed, but finished. And in that ending there is space, the kind of space where nothing follows, the kind of quiet where nothing is expected. The body rests because it can, the mind quiets because there is nothing left to carry. The world narrows gently, not in a limiting way, but, in a way that makes everything feel contained, manageable, complete. This place is not without effort, not without work, not without the long hours that came before this moment. But none of that exists now. It has passed. And what remains is only this small, steady stillness. The embers of the day have faded. The movement has slowed. The sounds have softened. And everything has found its place. There is no need to hold on to any part of it. No need to remember. No need to stay aware of it. It can all pass, just as the light passed, just as the warmth faded, just as each moment of the evening came and went without needing to be kept. The river will continue. the night will continue. And somewhere far ahead, morning will come again. But none of that matters now. Because this moment is enough. This quiet is enough. This soft, steady drifting is enough. And as that feeling settles more deeply, even it begins to fade, becoming lighter, less distinct, no longer something you notice clearly. Only something that remains quietly in the background. The difference between thinking and resting becomes smaller. The need to follow anything disappears. The sense of time loosens even further. And what remains is only the quiet, only the stillness, only the slow, natural movement toward rest, continuing without effort, without direction, without any need for it to be otherwise. And now, even that soft awareness begins to loosen, like something gently slipping away, not all at once, not suddenly, but slowly, naturally, as if it is no longer needed. There is nothing left to follow, nothing left to notice clearly, only the quiet continuation of the night, steady and unbroken. The village remains, though you no longer need to picture it in detail. It is enough to sense it faintly, the small homes resting along the Nile, the walls holding their quiet shape, the open sky stretching above. The river is still there, moving as it always has, calm and steady, but it feels distant now, more like a soft presence than something to observe. The air is still. The sounds are almost gone. If anything remains, it is so gentle, so quiet, that it blends into everything else, becoming part of the same calm stillness. A faint movement, a soft breath, something shifting far away, but none of it stands apart, none of it draws you back. Your breathing continues on its own. Slow, even, effortless Here is no need to think about it, no need to adjust it. It moves naturally, just like the river, just like the night, steady and quiet. Your body feels settled now. Heavy or light, it no longer matters. It rests without effort, supported still. There is nothing left to change, nothing left to do. Thoughts, if they appear at all, are faint and brief. They do not form fully, they do not stay. A soft impression might pass through, something familiar, something unimportant, and then it is gone again, leaving no trace behind. There is only this quiet drifting, this gentle stillness. The night continues around you, unchanged, patient, carrying everything forward without interruption. Beyond the village, the darkness stretches wide, endless and calm, but it no longer feels separate. It is part of the same quiet, part of the same stillness that surrounds you. The Nile flows quietly through it all. The sky remains still above, and within this space everything rests. Even the sense of being here begins to fade, becoming softer, less clear, as if it is no longer something you need to hold on to. The last traces of awareness grow lighter, the edges of thought dissolve, the feeling of the moment slips gently away, until there is almost nothing left to notice. Only a soft, steady calm, a quiet that does not change, a stillness that does not ask anything of you. And as you drift further into it, even that quiet begins to fade into something deeper, something softer, something beyond thought, until there is nothing left but rest, nothing left but sleep, and the night continues just as it always has, calm, steady, and endless, carrying everything gently forward as you drift quietly, effortlessly, into complete and peaceful sleep. And in that quiet where even sleep has taken hold, the night continues without interruption, without change, carrying everything gently forward in its own steady way. There is no moment that marks the passing of time, no clear boundary between 1 hour and the next. The darkness remains the same, deep and calm, stretching across the land, over the river, around the small village, resting beside it. The home is still. The walls hold their shape in silence, the air within them steady and cool. The mats remain undisturbed, the bodies resting upon them unmoving, the slow rhythm of breathing continuing without thought, without effort. Nothing nothing breaks the stillness. Even the smallest sounds have faded into something so soft they no longer stand apart from the quiet itself. Beyond the walls, the Nile flows as it always has, its movement constant, unaffected by sleep or waking, by light or darkness. It moves through the night with the same steady rhythm, unseen but present, a quiet force that does not rest, that does not pause. Its surface reflects only the faintest suggestion of the sky above, dark and endless, carrying the distant light of stars that remain far beyond reach. The air along the river is cooler now, drifting gently across the water, moving slowly toward the village, slipping through the spaces between the homes, touching the walls, passing through small openings without disturbing anything. It does not change the stillness, it becomes part of it. The sky above remains wide and clear, filled with stars that do not move in any way that can be noticed in this moment. They exist quietly, fixed in place, distant and constant, part of a world far beyond the small village below. There is no sound from them, no light that reaches the ground strongly enough to alter the darkness, only their silent presence. NCE stretching across the night. And within that night, everything rests. The village does not stir. The paths remain empty. The homes remain closed within their quiet spaces. There are no footsteps, no voices, no movement passing from one place to another. The rhythm of the day has ended completely, leaving behind only this uninterrupted stillness. If anything changes, it is so gradual that it cannot be felt. The air cools slightly more. The embers, if any remain hidden beneath ash, lose a little more of their warmth. The night deepens in a way that cannot be measured, only experienced as a continuous, unbroken calm. And within that calm, there is nothing to follow, nothing to notice, nothing to hold on to. Even the sense of being present begins to fade entirely, replaced by something softer, something deeper, something that does not need awareness at all. The world continues without you needing to observe it. The river flows, the sky remains, the village rests, and time moves forward without being counted, without being marked, without needing to be understood. Everything exists exactly as it is, unchanged, undisturbed, complete. And within that completeness there is only rest, quipe, and uninterrupted, carrying through the night without end, without effort, without any need for it to be otherwise. And still the night continues unchanged, unbroken, holding everything in the same quiet balance. There is no shift that can be clearly felt, no moment that stands apart from the one before it. The darkness remains steady, the air calm, the world resting without interruption. If anything moves, it does so gently that it cannot be noticed. The river continues its slow passage through the land, its surface smooth, its rhythm constant, carrying water forward as it always has. The banks remain still, the reeds along the edges unmoving, their shapes softened by the darkness, blending into the quiet outline of the land. The village remains as it was, settled completely into rest. The homes hold their silence, the spaces within them undisturbed. No light escapes now, no sound carries between them. Each place exists within its own calm, yet all are connected by the same stillness that surrounds them. The air has cooled further, but not sharply, not in a way that disturbs anything. It settles gently, evenly, filling the space without movement, without change. It rests, against the ground, against the walls, against everything it touches, becoming part of the quiet rather than interrupting it. Above, the sky remains wide and distant, unchanged in its quiet presence. The stars continue to exist, fixed and silent, offering no direction, no movement that can be followed, only a steady reminder of the vastness beyond the small world below. And within this stillness, there is no sense of time passing, no awareness of hours moving forward, no need to measure or mark anything at all. Everything simply continues. The same calm, the same quiet, the same gentle, unbroken rest. If a thought were to form, it would be faint, barely there, and it would fade before it could take shape. But even that feels distant now, unnecessary, as if the mind itself has settled into the same stillness as the world around it. There is nothing left to notice, nothing left to follow. Only the continuation of this quiet night. The river flowing softly in the distance, the village resting completely, the sky holding its silent, endless presence above, and everything moving forward together, not in steps, not in moments, but in one continuous, steady calm. It does not change. It do. It's not shift. It simply is. And within it, there is no effort, no awareness, no need for anything at all. Only the quiet, the stillness, and the deep, uninterrupted rest that carries on without end. And now, even that quiet sense of the night begins to fade into something softer still, something deeper, where nothing needs to be noticed at all. The river continues, the village rests, the sky remains wide above, but all of it drifts further away, becoming distant, becoming unnecessary, as if the world itself no longer needs to be held in your awareness. There is no image to follow now, no sound to notice, no shape to keep, only a soft, steady calm that continues on its own. Your breathing remains slow and even, but even that is no longer something you need to think about. It happens quietly, naturally, without effort, just like everything else. The sense of your body has almost disappeared. It rests completely, still, supported, without weight, without movement. And your thoughts, if they try to appear, are too soft to take shape. They drift in and out without meaning, without direction, fading before they can be understood. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. The night, no lon. Feels like something around you. It feels like something you are already part of. There is no separation now, no inside or outside, no near or far. Only one continuous calm that holds everything gently in place. The Nile flows somewhere within that calm. The village rests within it. The sky stretches endlessly through it, but none of it needs to be seen. None of it needs to be known. It simply continues, and you continue with it, drifting, softly, easily, without effort, until even the sense of drifting disappears, until there is no movement at all, no thought, no awareness, only rest, only stillness, only sleep. And the night carries on, just as it always has, quiet, steady and endless, while you rest deeply within it, completely at ease, completely asleep. Description. Step gently into the ancient world and spend a quiet evening along the Nile. In this long, slow-paced history story for sleep, you'll experience what life truly felt like in an ancient Egyptian village, far from pyramids and pharaohs, in the calm rhythm of everyday people living beside the river that shaped everything. Nile. As the sun sets over the Nile, boats return, the air cools, and the village slowly drifts from work into stillness. Follow the gentle flow of evening life from simple homes and shared meals to quiet nighttime rituals, soft sounds of the river, and the deep silence of the desert sky. This is not a story of events but of atmosphere, designed to help you relax, unwind, and fall into deep natural sleep. Let the steady rhythm of the Nile carry you into rest. Close your eyes and drift.